Happy Wednesday, everyone, and thank you for attending Leverage Emotional Intelligence to Advance Your Career with Luz Gonzalez. On behalf of the Latinista, welcome. My name is Claudia, and I am today's moderator, and I'll share a little bit about me. I'm a native New Yorker, but now I live in Los Angeles. I'm also a singer and a vegan cook, and I've recently started my own mindfulness webinars called Presently Aquí. For those who aren't familiar with the Latinista, we're a national network of Latinas and women of color invested in career and leadership development. Today's guest is Luz Gonzalez, and she's the CEO and founder of EQ Refined, a company that ensures the overall well-being and sustainability of each individual worker and their team's interaction with each other through emotional intelligence, which is a topic that I love. So as we welcome Luz into the studio, give me 1 second. Hi, Luz. Welcome.
Hi, Claudia. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah,
and thank you, Latinistas, for hosting this.
Fantastic.
We've been talking about it for months.
I know we have.
Yes.
I'm really, it's been months and I'm really excited. You were my first webinar, so it's just exciting to host you again in a different setting, but it's always nice to talk to you.
Thank you, Claudia. Yeah, it's always great to talk to you as well.
Yeah.
It's nice when people come together and share ideas and just get, that's one of my things. I love coming together and having different insights.
And I will say that I've gotten great feedback. People still I love the girl on my first webcast. So you have this aura, this energy. So I'm excited to share with the Latinistas and everyone can see what we've all been in love with about you. So I let you take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. So hi again. Thank you for joining me. This workshop aims at leveraging your emotional intelligence to advance your career. As Claudia stated earlier, my name is Luz Gonzalez, and I've been working in the emotional intelligence field for over 10 years. A little housekeeping. On the lower part of your screen, there should be a chat box. Feel free to message me throughout the presentation. Claudia, Jai, and I will be interacting with you. I really love this to be targeted specifically for you to gain insights and walk away with real tools. So feel free to message us and tell us where you're coming from. I wanted to share with you a story and see if you resonate with it in any way. A few years ago, I found myself in a meeting with 12 other people. We were excited. We had an idea. We decided to create a project and move forward with it. Week after week, we would meet. And I started noticing that after a few months, the momentum was dying. People were not as talkative. People were excited to leave early. Some people didn't make it anymore. I found myself to be growing frustrated and annoyed. Why was everyone becoming so disengaged? Why were people not participating? One person was taking charge of the event, but it seemed like they were alone in the decision making. I didn't want to be there anymore, to be honest with you. And I didn't know at the time, but a lot of people felt the same way I did. Because at the end of the 6 months, the turnover rate was over 70%. That means that out of 12 people, only 3 or 4 remained. I want you to think about that. How many workplaces, organizations, teams, and even groups start off strong with clear direction, excited, enthusiastic, only to have it break apart little by little? That was one big lesson for me, and it got me curious to dive in more. I wanted to find answers to what happened. What actions took place that canceled the outcome, that created this outcome? What could have been avoided and what could have been changed? So that became my new drive. Have you ever felt uncomfortable in a space? I have. Do you ever wonder why certain people trigger you? You're just like, I don't want to see this person. And have you ever wondered why your career is at a standstill? Well, I'm going to teach you how you can bring the unconscious to the conscious. Why do you feel uncomfortable in a certain space? Why do certain people trigger you? And why is your career still at a standstill? Or how can you get to where you really want to be? Having said that, Tell me your why. I want to know in the chat box below, why are you here today? What did you do that brought you to today's event? What do you want to get out of it? And as you do that, I want to share another thing. Times are really changing, and COVID has been, in my opinion, the great disruptor. We are now being asked to tap into our own personal why in life. We're evolving and enhancing our EQ, also known as emotional quotient, is another step in this evolution. My goal is to have you walk away with real tools to make your next moment conscious, to walk away with creating what you really want to create. Oftentimes we're waiting to get over a specific moment to get to the next moment. Well, how about we take advantage of every moment we have? Now with that, let's get started. Claudia, can we start on the first slide?
Absolutely. I got you. Give me 1 second. This is so
Yes.
exciting. I'm so excited. All right.
And then I think we have someone who wrote in the chat box.
I have a message here. I want to learn more about what emotional intelligence means and how I can be better at it.
Great question. So these slides are going to go into all of that. Let's go on to the very next slide. In the next 45 minutes, I will define different aspects of what makes up your emotional quotient, also known as EQ, through both emotional intelligence and emotional awareness. Next, we're going to dive into recognizing reactions and how to shift that into choosing a more directive approach through responses. Lastly, we'll create an action plan to enhance your own emotional quotient and learn how you can leverage emotional intelligence to advance your career, your workspace, and your personal life. Next slide. Let's begin by defining different aspects of your emotional quotient. I invite you to write down in the chat box, what do you think emotional intelligence is? I've been told in the past that someone said emotional intelligence is reading the room. Other people have said you have to have high emotional intelligence so you could be a salesperson. But I'd like to suggest that your emotional quotient underscores the importance of how you interact with others. So it's beyond reading the room. It's beyond being a salesperson. Next slide. Someone wrote, knowing how to react without being emotional. Good answer. Yes, exactly. Basically, emotional intelligence is also known as EI. It's how well we handle ourselves with our emotions. So instead of without being emotional, let's give you a little bit more direction. By definition, emotional intelligence is the ability to perceive, identify, evaluate, and respond to your own emotions and the emotions of others. According to Daniel Goleman, an American psychologist who helped popularize the words emotional intelligence, he claims that there are 4 key elements to the emotional intelligence model. There's self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. Simply put, how much do I know about my emotions? That one is self-awareness. There's a spectrum to everything. Have you ever had the experience of talking and realizing that no one was actually listening? Or maybe it was vice versa. All eyes are on you, waiting for you to say something. Self-awareness is an important skill to have in any situation or gathering. Next, we have self-management. What am I going to do with this feeling? What am I going to do with this thought? So I was on an airplane recently. I was sitting with the person next to me playing music loudly on their iPad or iPhone. I waited to see what they would do. I had my own headphones on, and I could feel myself growing impatient. As the time passed, I asked myself, okay, what am I going to do about this? My family was saying I'm like the airplane police. Politely, I requested the person, could you please put your headphones on? The person seemed to be upset with me, and they asked me, "Do you have your headphones?" And I was like, "Yes, it's right here." So I want to show how something so simple can escalate to feelings of anger, resentment, frustration, even. But there's times when you can't be like that in certain spaces. And this is the airplane. I've seen people lose their tempers on the airplane and basically get kicked off. So, what spaces do you think require your self management? Some people say workspace, some people say home, possible friendship relationships. All of this leads to social awareness. What are others feeling? And this is where empathy plays a big role. Knowing what someone else is feeling or going through can be vital to your relationship building. This is why it's so vital in the workplace. This is the ability to understand and share feelings of another person, empathy. Take the person on the airplane. They must have felt something that caused them to react or be triggered by me saying, "Do you have headphones?" Now, LinkedIn has, you put your ideas, you put your thoughts onto LinkedIn. And I've had situations where friends of mine have posted stuff, and the comments that they've gotten back has triggered high emotions. One of the questions was how do you deal with this situation? How many times have you witnessed something go wrong where people get triggered right away? Things are said, and then you get this feeling like, what just happened? Why did it have to go there? It became somewhat of a power struggle. This is the importance for social awareness. Lastly, we have relationship management. Going beyond empathy, you're learning how to put it all together. It's kind of like making a cake. You get the ingredients, and now you're putting it all together to make one delicious cake. How aware am I about the people around me? This is where certain individuals move into leadership. What do we want to create as a unit? What do we want to create as a group? What goals and our intentions are there as a team or organization to move forward and develop? Each of these sections have their own part to play. And I feel talents such as dance or analytical skills, we all have some intrinsic abilities within us. But we put effort into learning to increase what we find value in. One of the most common questions I get is, "Luz, I get it. Emotions, but what about it? Why are you so passionate about it?" And here's what I tell them. How many times have you missed an opportunity due to the belief you had? How many relationships have you started and ended due to your emotions getting the best of you? And how many jobs have you been in and out of because of a thought or a feeling that you had that you weren't valued or heard? How would life have been different if you knew how to recognize and manage your emotions? Today, there's been an explosion in the importance of EQ and how it can change your life. Truly, it's not just in the workplace. It's been proven to be something of high value on so many levels. Let's go to the next slide. And I'd like to ask a question here, back to the audience. What do you think emotional awareness is? And as you guys feel free to write anything you like. But Claudia, I'm going to bring it to you. What do you think emotional awareness is?
It's being aware of what you're feeling, whether it could be like happy or you're sad, and acknowledging it, right? Because we know when we're happy, sad, but it's like being in the present with the feeling, right? Is it that?
Yeah, that's a great answer. For me, emotional awareness is where the secret sauce is. This is what gives it that special oomph. Emotional awareness is data that can give you valuable information. It's becoming aware of everything you're feeling. So you mentioned happy, and I'm going to take it a little bit further. It's about feeling inside your body and within the different zones of your body. Emotional awareness is a way to recognize, reason, and regulate what's happening internally. So bringing it back to the person on the airplane, this person was playing their music loudly, and I could start feeling myself getting frustrated. I could have come from my head and said something, or I could gone in through the process of feeling discomfort. This, for me, is what emotional awareness is about. I've also been told, Luce, I recognize the feelings in my body, or I feel fine. What are you trying to say? So here's my answer. And I'm going to ask all of you to do this for a moment. If you can, if you're not driving a vehicle or doing anything in particular, close your eyes for a moment. In the coming months, as the vaccine becomes more and more available to people, organizations will begin to ask their employees to go back to the office. Schools will begin to ask children to go back to school. There's various workplaces that will be more and more with a lot of people. Feel in your body as I say this. You may start to feel something. How does it feel in your chest? I invite you to tune in. What about your throat? What about your stomach? Is anything coming up for you?
We got a
Claudia?
question. We got a question
Okay.
from Jose. What are you experiencing physically? Which is what you're kind of touching on, I guess, not knowing where are these feelings, right?
Exactly. And that's what we want you to do with emotional awareness, is really tune in to particular zones in the body to see if anything is coming up. Claudia, did you have anything come up?
I did. I felt it in my stomach.
In your stomach.
Like just like, oh, I don't know if I feel safe, right? If I feel comfortable.
That's a great point. So just the idea that there might be something uncomfortable out there is triggering something, some potential danger or uncertainty. Alarm bells go off in your body, taking us to the next slide. Claudia, can you switch the slides? Oh, the next slide. So we're going to discuss recognizing automatic reactions of fight or flight. The fight or flight response is our body's automatic response that prepares your body for fight or flee from a perceived attack, harm, or threat to your survival. I'm born in New York, but I'm raised in Miami, Florida. And having gone back to New York, I could see how there is a lot of that energy there, fight or flee or freeze. But I would like to say that naturally COVID-19 has been ingrained into our minds as a potential threat to our survival. The body and the mind were made to survive. And when we feel threatened, it's natural for cortisol, which is a hormone, to be released. Cortisol is a stress hormone. The body, it gives the body the ability to react, to run, to fight. Think of cortisol as nature's built-in alarm system. It's your body's main stress hormone, and it's best known for helping fuel your body's fight or flight instinct in a crisis. And all I had to say was, close your eyes and think about this, and you immediately could feel something. Claudia talked about feeling it in her gut. Did anybody else feel anything as we walked you through the scenario? So all you have to do really is picture a moment. You do it yourself all the time when you're going over details of the past or the present. You're analyzing, you're predicting. You're actually releasing certain levels of cortisol throughout your body. Think of something and pay attention to the locations throughout your body. This will really help you start pinpointing where you're feeling and how you're reacting throughout your life. Next slide. My heart. Jose wrote my heart. Yes, my chest, Jai wrote. Vanessa wrote, my chest is beating faster, anxious. Very good, exactly. So cortisol is pumping throughout our bodies often, and sometimes we're aware of it and sometimes we're not. There's certain moments when we can actively feel where the blockage is. Claudia mentioned earlier about her gut. Jose mentioned his heart, Jai mentioned her chest, and Vanessa mentioned her chest as well. That's actually a very powerful insight that will help you move forward. Let's dive a little deeper. Here, I have a few idioms. Have you guys ever heard of these? I have a frog in my throat. It feels as if an elephant just landed on my chest. There's butterflies in my stomach. These feelings are real to the point where the majority of us have felt this or connect to these messages. When I showed this to other people, they all started smiling and nodding, in unison. So quick question, and I need everyone to respond. Does an elephant on your chest feel good or bad? And Claudia, feel free to also jump in.
Yeah, definitely bad. Jai,
Bad.
same. Bad.
Bad. Really, think about it. Does an elephant on your chest feel good or bad? When people say it feels like a heavy weight just landed on my chest, is that a good feeling or a bad feeling? Bad. Yes. So Jose mentioned earlier his heart. Was it a good feeling or was it a bad feeling? This, for me, is a litmus test. Vanessa, you talked about anxiety coming in with the chest. The key question is, does it feel good or bad? So it's one of the key ingredients in the secret sauce for emotional awareness. How does it feel? It may sound simplistic, but true wisdom usually is simple. And I was recently told to keep it simple, which I love because that's my favorite thing. Keep it simple without the other S at the end. So I'll ask you again. When you tune into your body, ask yourself, do things feel good or bad? Does it create a feeling of you wanting to connect? Does it create a feeling of you wanting to share and communicate, collaborate, be joyful? Or does it create a feeling of you opening up yourself or closing yourself down? That's the extreme. Does it take you away from others? Does it shun you or isolate you? Does it make you want to flee, freeze, or fight? These are all questions that you ask yourself, because one space you're in your power, and in the other space you've actually given away your power because you're not in control. That automatic thought has come in and put you in a space where you're really not even deciding where you want to go. So let me use the analogy to link two ideas together. Claudia, or everybody else, have you ever used the weather app? I know that there was recently a snowstorm, but not so bad, in New York. Have you used that weather app to tell you how to stay in touch with how you should be prepared for the weather?
Absolutely.
And why?
Because I want to know if I have to carry an umbrella, or do I have to wear a thicker coat, or is it going to be hot? I want to wear shorts. So you kind of like want to prepare.
Exactly. Next slide. So remember that. You wake up in the morning, you look at your weather app to see how you're going to prepare for the day. Well, similar to checking the weather app in the morning to gain valuable information, your emotions are also helping you tune in to valuable information. They're there to guide your choices. Build the habit of pausing and checking in with yourself, especially in the moment of conflict. This is very valuable. I'm an entrepreneur, so I'd like to see this as my own personal intellectual property. I am in tune with valuable information that gives me great insight and keeps me on top of my game. And just like checking in with the weather app to begin my day, my emotions are also giving me valuable information, and I need to use that to feel empowered. Next slide. Having said that, we will go now into recognizing proactive responses using your emotional quotient. Here's one of my proprietary tools that I would love to share with you. It's called the GAIN process. And so I named it GAIN because it's a positive, it's quick to remember, it's easy, and it's something that I can go to all the time. We'll start with the letter G. Gather critical data from your physical fight or flight sensations. Claudia mentioned earlier that she could feel it in her gut. A few of you mentioned also you could feel something in your chest. What you're doing right now is gathering critical information. This feels something. And then once you feel that, go on to the next slide, please. You want to assess. A is for assess. Assess And assessing the gain process means assessing the current situation by pausing before you're moving forward. If I'm going to tell you that you're going to go to the office and you're going to get ready to be surrounded by a whole bunch of other people, the first thing you do is you gather the information. Your gut is active. You can feel something happening. You assess the data that you've just received. How many times are we making decisions from a place where we're automatically reacting and we feel like we're being attacked or we're lack of safety or danger is present? The assessment here is to ask yourself, what is the information offering me? My body is triggered. Next slide. Let's move on to the I as initiate. You want to initiate your proactive response. By tuning into your emotional awareness, you are now choosing to respond consciously. You're always getting information from your body. When you tune into your emotional awareness, you now have the option to respond to the data that you're gaining. If you do feel a little bit of that anxiety coming in, that flow, the blockage, do something to love yourself. Move, take a deep breath, bring back the flow, welcome it back. Take the airline example. I took a moment to gather the data from my physical sensations. I could feel the pressure in my chest when I heard the loud music. I assessed my thoughts and my feelings, and I decided to initiate my response proactively and consciously. When she turned to me and asked, "Do you have your headphones on?" I could have reacted, but I was like, "Yes, I have them. They're right here." There's been times when instead of pausing and gathering insight and assessing my own emotional awareness, I've reacted immediately. It doesn't usually end well. It's a power struggle. So basically, instinct of survival of the fittest. You're not going to overcome me. I'm going to overcome you. Who's gonna win? But in the situation we're coming into now, in this world, in this society, we're asked to evolve, as I mentioned earlier. We're moving beyond that old model. How many times have you ever lost your cool and you've had to, someone just wrote something. How many times have you ever lost your cool and you didn't pause and reassess? The I in the gain process is reminding you to take your time, become aware of your emotional awareness. It's a tool for you to use proactively.
So Jose is saying, so if I'm aware that my chest is beating faster, all I need to do is change my perspective?
Yes, because what happens is oftentimes you're not even aware that your chest is pounding, that the heart is beating. You're on automatic mode. So you start moving and making decisions from that space. What you do is when you realize that your heart is pounding, this is a moment for you to pause. This is why the evolution part takes in, because you learn as you grow, you learn to do things in a different way. So my heart is pounding, my chest is heavy. I start having thoughts of anxiety, of fleeing, of running, of freezing. Take a breath. What is the thought? The thought was something that was not pleasant and it didn't feel good. That's the trigger. That's the key. It didn't feel good. So what does feel good? Some self-care, self-love. Yes, loving yourself. Breathing, believe it or not, that's simple. Because think about breathing. The act of breathing is to connect to life. The act of breathing is to have a flow, circulation moving throughout your whole body. And you're removing this blockage.
Jai saying, most times the outcome is not as bad as you thought it would be. I feel our brains run away from us sometimes. I can't agree more.
For sure. I totally agree with that. Like I said earlier, sometimes you're looking at a car crash with people and you're like, what just happened? Why did it get to this level? Can we go to the next slide? From there, we move on to the N in the gain process. You'll begin to navigate your next steps consciously with the intention of clear communication. If you want to build bridges, then you want to navigate your next steps with a clear mind and a vision forward. Building bridges really requires time and assessment. Again, how many times have we made decisions, and Jai just said about this, from a place of bias, from a place of beliefs or thoughts that we really haven't brought forward? They're in the subconscious. Also, how many times are we making decisions with not having all the information? There's so much miscommunication out there. Also, lastly, I'd like to say, how many times are we thinking that we're being threatened or attacked, or we even there's a misunderstanding? Someone didn't understand us in the right way. With the gain process, you'll walk into the next meeting or gathering with new open perspective. Like Jose mentioned earlier, change your perspective. Are you willing to shift your thinking? This takes time. It's like going to the gym. You don't grow your muscle the very first time you do it, but you have to do it proactively and frequently. If you could begin to gather data from your physical sensations and then you assess them and then you navigate the feelings throughout, you'll be able to be a little more successful when you're connecting with individuals on a different basis. It's all about inclusivity now, gaining information from so many different people. Travel is more frequent. We are connecting on different levels, and that's why internet was created, to be honest. With that said, let's focus on 3 specific locations in the body where you can predominantly gather information from. Next slide. We touched upon 2 of them recently. The first one that I haven't mentioned yet is the throat. The next one is the chest. And the next one is the stomach. In the early 2000s, I'd recently been separated from the father of my children, and I had 3 jobs. I suffered greatly from pains in my intestines, and night after night, I was suffering from heart palpitations. I couldn't sleep. I was scared. How was I going to pay for the bills? How was I going to raise my 3 children? These thoughts would keep me awake in the middle of the night, as I was also doubled over in pain. I went to go see 2 different gastro doctors, and they both told me that the results were fine. They didn't see anything abnormal, and I was fine, just change your diet or something like that. I did some research and I found that sleeping remedies and gastroenterological medicines are the top 10 over-the-counter medicines that people look for pain relief of physical pain. How many times have you felt something was happening in your body only to have a doctor tell you that the test results came back normal, nothing seems to be showing up? So one of the big takeaways I would like you to have is listen to your body, because there's a wealth of knowledge there for you to learn from. After learning and researching more and more about emotional awareness, to be honest with you, the stomach pains went away. As soon as I was able to comprehend that there's a message coming from different locations in my body, it really gave me so much awareness and epiphany. I wasn't going to be able to support my children was a place where I was thinking. I wasn't going to have enough money to be able to afford the house. There was a deep-rooted fear of money. As I researched that as well, I found out that from John Hancock's financial stress survey that over 72% of workers admitted to worrying about their personal finances, and 1 in 3 were doing it more than once a week. And it goes to show that we have these repetitive thoughts that keep us in a state of fear. It's unconscious fear. Claudia, would you have anything pop up with the idioms that we mentioned earlier, the frog in your throat, the elephant on your chest? Did any of that resonate with you?
Yes, definitely. And it's usually the frog in the throat for me when I go on stage to sing. I freak out, and all these doubts seep in, and can I do it? Will I sound good? And what's happening? And you freak out, right? So you think you prepare, and then all of a sudden, when the moment comes, that whatever it's the frog for me is the frog. I'm just like, I don't know. Yeah. So I definitely can see how that is and how it affects, and then figuring out where is that coming from? Like, why is my thinking that I can't, right?
Right,
So
exactly. I have the same feeling.
it's really interesting how the body's just like, I don't know. And then all of a sudden I get a sore throat, all of it, so it's just all this self-induced because you were whatever the fear is, right? Well, as you're saying, whatever the fear is that kicks in, it's bigger. And so being aware, it'll help for sure. And that's something that I'm still working on.
Right. And so, what emotional awareness does for me is it helps me recognize these thoughts are coming from a place of fear, because you mentioned it earlier. The thoughts that come up when you have a frog in your throat is, I can't do it, or they're not feelings that make you feel empowered. So, for me, that's key. Where in your life do you not feel empowered? Where in your life are you having obstacles show up? I've I've had to actively lay the groundwork to breathe and be aware of my own breath to get me through certain situations where my mind has created challenges or blockages. I now see them as opportunities, opportunities to build that muscle, because we all have a superpower, but we also have the counterpart, which is, I don't know what the word is, but it's like the Achilles heel, your kryptonite. So look into your life. Where is your superpower and where is your kryptonite? I feel often that your greatest strength can also be one of your greatest weaknesses. But I don't see them as weaknesses. I see them as opportunities for you to develop them, grow. Next slide, please.
Jose is saying, what do you think the frog in the throat means?
Okay. So from the research I've done, one of the things that I feel is, if it doesn't feel good, then there's a thought connected to fear. And it's a thought connected to expressing my truth, expressing myself. Will I be accepted? Will I be welcomed? Am I safe to speak? Does that resonate with you, Claudia, since yours was a frog in the throat?
Yes, absolutely resonates. It's been an interesting journey. It's all these other things that you don't realize. Like for me, I know that I was always afraid to speak up. I sadly chose. We all have our past dating lives, and we choose the wrong people, and they scare us into ourselves, right? We're afraid. So that happened to me, where I wasn't able to do this in my 20s. I couldn't do even this. I was not able to just, hey, hi everybody. So it takes time to find the root of the problem. Where is this fear coming from? Right? Why was it placed there? Because it's not naturally there. It's put there by a trauma, for me anyway.
Right. No, I think so many women will resonate, or even men will resonate with that, with speaking. I myself was someone who didn't speak, or when I would speak, it would be only when I knew that it was safe to speak. So I'm sure that there was some kind of trauma there, or self-imposed fear that was ingrained or inside of me all along, that I've had to learn to strengthen. And now with that, let's link the using the game process with an action plan. That's one of the parts that I love most. Next. Focus on 3 points. Make a conscious choice to not speak, but listen. And if you are naturally a listener like I am, then make the conscious choice to speak more, just like what we just talked about, Claudia. Connecting by using your voice proactively, and connect with empathy, open communication. I also want you to use open communication through feedback. Actually, Generation X is the first generation to openly welcome feedback. And that's, I think, what's one of the things that's helping the generations following, because communicate with me. What is it that you see in me that I don't see in myself? But at the same time, it has to be 2 ways. What is it that I see in you that you don't see in yourself? Are you willing to hear it, and are you willing to give it? Lastly, are you attached to how people listen to you? Are you going to give advice, and then if they didn't follow the advice, do you get affected somehow? Lastly, step into your own personal leadership abilities. When you learn to enhance your listening skills, when you learn how to do open communication through feedback, these are all skills that support leadership. And we're all being called to step up now, in my opinion. We see something, so we need to call it out, not think someone else is going to do it. This supports you into the stage of your own personal leadership. Next slide. Claudia, I have to share with you. As a New Yorker, have you ever seen something like this before?
Definitely, all the time. Every train you take.
Right. So some of you might know this message. You'll see it in government buildings. You'll see it on public transportation. You've heard it in the airport. How many of you seen this sign and felt it somewhat menacing? You know, that whole fight or flight situation. I got to now keep my eyes open. If you see something, say something. I want to bring this message and make it and bring it into the office, because I've always seen this message and my head gets excited with different ideas. Let's go to the next slide. I want to interlink the messages. Since Claudia, I just called you. So what do you see in this image in front of you? And audience, also feel free to type in what you see in this message. In this image.
Definitely. I see, well, the red is telling me that they're not communicating, that there's like the red things is showing me like they're not communicating or they're not sharing, maybe?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. How many times are you in a meeting and you're not sharing your true ideas? Another aspect of this image is body language. I don't know if you noticed, but there's no faces in any of the pictures. This is why going viral has been so difficult for a lot of people, because there's no visual cues. There's no interaction on how you can connect with someone. And it could be labored at times. People tend to restrict their thoughts. And there's a reason for it. How many times have you been in a meeting and you're really not going to share what your true thoughts are because either you want the meeting to end or you don't see an opening, or you're like, what for? They don't even care what I'm going to say anyway. So this is where you have to initiate yourself. Are you open to sharing your ideas? Remember, I talked about being in a room with 12 other individuals and nobody was contributing. It got to a place where everyone basically left because there was no interaction. According to the National Science Foundation, the average person has about 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day. And of those thoughts, 80% are negative thoughts. And you'd be surprised that 95% are repetitive thoughts. So I would love you to start tapping into your own thoughts and start recognizing, is this a repetitive thought? Is this thought bridging? Is this thought breaking? Is this thought aligned to my goal? I want you to pay attention to this, because this is the beginning of recognizing your surroundings and how you can take action to advance your career and your personal life. Next slide. According to a Gallup poll that came out before COVID, it showed that only 13% of employees are engaged at work. In a team of 5, that means 3 were not engaged and only 2 were actively engaged. And it's very similar to the story I shared earlier. Think about your last meeting and the level of interaction. How many were actively engaged? The study also found that 63% of employees report being apathetic at work. They're really not interested. That means that 3 out of 10 people seem to be enthusiastic, excited about being there, and that's a major problem in the workforce. How many people are bringing their full creativity or their ideas? Next slide, please. Let's go back to the image. I changed it up a little bit. And Claudia, what do you see here?
I see eyes. So now I feel like they're looking at me. They're paying attention. That's where like the eyes are like, oh, hi, I'm here. Oh, I'm here and I'm ready to present.
Yeah. So by increasing your EQ, you open up the space for yourself and for others to contribute, to share, to collaborate, and to ideate. Creativity flows in this space. It's a welcome space. As part of the action plan, I'd like you to experiment. Let's take back the saying, if you see something, say something. If you see, I put it in here as well. Because if you see something, are you willing to say something? And this is, I think, where there's a lot of blockage for a lot of companies, a lot of relationship building. Are people willing to communicate? Is there any misunderstanding that is needing to get aired out? Something that encourages everyone's voice in whatever capacity is to bring it. You know, if you don't speak, if you draw, then draw it. If you text, then text. But find a way to really send the message. Next slide. When you're in your next meeting, notice what emotions pop up. What's coming for you? Are you communicating to someone? Are you using your listening skills? How is everyone contributing? How are you interacting with others, and how are others interacting with you? Are you able to take a breath and then say something that you see? Do you have a shared goal? This is a big question here. Are you compartmentalizing? And I brought it up earlier. Are you waiting for this moment to pass for you to get to the next moment? If so, how many moments are you allowing to pass you by? The people that I've worked with have learned to tap into their creativity and communication and their own leadership skills. They've put in the work and they've seen the difference in the way that they show up in their life. Because this is work, to be honest with you. I say everything is hard. Working is hard, not working is hard. Being in relationship is hard, not being in relationship is hard. Where are you going to put in the time? Everyone has more, everyone can use more help to develop their skills. The question is, are you going to dedicate time to develop your life? Next. Here's a challenge for you. If you can actively stay in the space for the next 7 days, are you willing to look internally? Notice when you feel good and notice when you don't feel so good. Notice when you feel open and abundant and connected. And notice when you feel small, or when you feel like you want to retreat, or when you feel disconnected. These are all important areas for you to look at to start recognizing what is working and what is not. What should I put more emphasis on? Add emotional awareness to this. Take deep breaths, pause. Can you feel in your body where it's activated? And also use the gain process. How do you decide to move forward? This is an experiment. It's an experiment. I'd love to hear back from you to see how it goes. And later, please share it with me. I'm going to share my email with you at the end of the presentation, and I would really love to hear how it goes for you. Next slide. Here we have an image of what it looks like to increase your EQ. How can you enhance your communication? I go back to the story of the 12 people. What if I would have changed? What if I raised my hand and asked the question, is it only me or is everybody else getting this? What would have happened if I did this? Maybe this would have opened up others to share as well. Maybe they would share their ideas instead of just staying quiet. Maybe this creates a domino effect. Speaking up when you choose to remain quiet, it could also create a domino effect. If you share with the goal to increase transparency and collaboration, you'll find that it improves employee retention. It improves connectivity and creativity, which also leads to feeling that it's a safe space. It's a safe space to ask questions, and it's a safe space to gain feedback from other people instead of feeling it as criticism. Next. Jose wrote, I guess I could use see something, say something with my manager. Oh, very good. Yes, you could. It's a choice. Try it for the next 7 days. Let me know how it goes. So are you willing to gain to advance your career? Jose says he's going to try with his manager. I think this is going to be exciting. And Jose, you brought up something interesting. When you don't share with your manager, how does it feel? Does it feel good or does it feel bad? And it's bad, right? Right. So use tapping into your emotional awareness. It really starts showing you where is it feeling bad in your body. There's really a navigation system going on within you. That would be exciting. Let me know how it goes. So are you willing to gain to advance in your career? This is about gathering the data, assessing the information, initiating the desire to proactively respond, and navigate forward consciously. So I'm so excited to see you say that. It took 3 months of hiding my feelings. Interesting. I love that. Thank you for sharing. That's so open of you. I appreciate that. Because this is what it takes. It takes for you to actively look at yourself. How does it feel? And then do something different. If something closes you down and then you think, I'm done with this, choose to look internally. How can you infuse active listening and collaboration in this moment? So Jose already told me something that he's going to do. He's going to try it with his manager. How about anybody else? Are you guys willing to share some action steps? Because I'm sure things are happening in your head. You're resonating with certain messages. There's thoughts that could come up for you during this talk, and I'd love for you to add it into the chat box if you feel called to. We're here to support you. We're here to raise each other up because we're a community. Everyone has a story where they've worked in a team and it was misery. So now we have the great opportunity to learn more about ourselves and more about how we can show up in a space. So more people, yes.
Sorry, Jai commented, connect with someone else who can help you push this important topic forward.
Yes, exactly. Because there is power in numbers. And if you're openly telling people around you, I'm open, I want to hear things about me that might not be in alignment with who I would like to be, support me, and vice versa. Are you open to hearing it as well? Look to see where you're holding back. Where are you contributing and where are you not contributing? Next slide. Here we have a slide that's ways to help you increase your EQ to achieve success. I feel accountability is very important because if I'm not able to be accountable, then I'm not willing to see. And when we talk about unconscious bias, that's one of the biggest things we talk about is, are you willing to see? Are you willing to go into a space that you're uncertain about, that you don't know? A next step would be empathy. Empathy is valuable in the sense where you're really connecting to another individual. You're really recognizing a different perspective, because that's why diversity works. Because I can only come to you from my perspective, from my collected experiences. But if you come to me with your collected experiences and someone else comes to me with their collected experiences, we gain a broader vision of the picture. Lastly, you have to be willing to respond versus react. Again, in the airplane, in the office, at home, where are we willing to restrict this part of us that wants to explode? And then where are we willing to take a pause, take a breath? It really works. Take a breath and then choose differently. Communicate differently. Next slide. As a manager, I'm going to make sure my team feels empowered to speak up during meetings. Wonderful. Thank you. Yes, please. That's so valuable. That's so valuable to the team collective, because as we see here, this is how to create a healthier team dynamic. Perfect timing. Team dynamics and leadership, because we're growing, we're becoming more. So leadership is asked to step up. Everybody now is asked to step up with your vision, with your insight, with your know-how. We all are part of the team and we all create this picture. Next slide. Now, I've collected a few takeaways here, but I would love to hear some of your takeaways. And we just got one of the takeaways here. As I say, one of my things is to gather the information. I feel gathering information is very valuable. That's why we have schools, we have think tanks, we have thought leadership, we have research and development Gather the information that your body is giving you. Remember, it's your intellectual property. Next, assess the data that you gained. This is where key parts are really put into play. Oftentimes you have statistics, but it depends on how you assess the information that you can deliver something. Are you really looking at the information in a way that's unbiased? Assess the information. Third, in my opinion, I wrote, initiate a proactive response. You have to be willing to do things differently. Again, it's work on your part, but it's work toward evolution. Lastly, navigate steps consciously, because this is where bringing the unconscious to the conscious comes into play. We are really on autopilot a majority of the time. How many times, and I'll ask you a question, how many times do you actively know that you are taking a breath throughout the day? And be honest. For me, on my part, I have to actually pinpoint the moments where I take a breath so I could be aware of them. Because this hour passed and I know I've taken a few, but I've had to have been taken more than a few because I'm still alive. So when are we going to navigate our next steps consciously? Because when we do this, you're going to see a big change. Next slide.
We have a
Yes.
comment from Anastasia. I
Yep.
just started a new job, but I have to understand how to juggle my responsibilities with these new ones without getting stressed.
Yes, because the stress doesn't help. It's going back to the question, does it feel good or bad? So this is where you find out, okay, perhaps time management could be a solution. And then you proactively take steps to learn time management. There's so much information to support us in our growth, but we can't do it when we're unconscious. And then when we're stressed, like I said earlier, the cortisol is pumping, you're fighting, you're fleeing, you're freezing. That's not supporting you either in your growth. So collaboration works when we are all part of the equation. I truly feel to be in an inclusive world, it's bringing everybody's strengths forward. We're all part of the jigsaw puzzle. And if one piece of the jigsaw puzzle is missing, then it's not complete. It's not about copying or mimicking or changing or becoming another piece. It's becoming your own piece. Bring that forward and you'll see how amazing every part of the equation works. Next slide. Every year, LinkedIn identifies which skills will be the most valued in the workplace. And for me, it was very exciting to see that the data comes from a network of 660 million professionals and 200 million jobs. And they reveal the 15 most in demand skills, soft skills and hard skills. And guess what? EQ finally made the list. You know, for me, it's a no-brainer, but yes. So more and more businesses are recognizing the importance of self-awareness and its value in the workplace. The importance of emotional intelligence for leadership is being recognized everywhere. In Davos, the World Economic Forum, they recently announced that increasing your EQ is one of the essential abilities for the future. On top of that, you have boardrooms and C-suite executives who see EQ as a main focus for executive coaching. It's all about having the skill set that you absolutely need, because these skill sets help you, again, reach out to people, collect information, gather the collaboration and creativity, and you retain people. Increasing your EQ will support you in walking away with the knowledge and ability to gain cognitive control and also have you create an audit system, to be honest. And for me, that audit system is emotional awareness. Reconnect with what you want to create in your career and in your personal life. What that means for you is that you become empowered to choose again. Remember I mentioned earlier that we don't even realize how many times we're breathing? Well, this gives us the ability to choose again. We always have that ability to realign with our goal, realign with what we want to create. It's not finished. If your heart is beating and you're alive, you have a choice and you can do it again. To acknowledge that you have a choice is very fundamental and it's powerful. Whether you're an individual looking to elevate your personal or professional performance, whether you're a consultant or a coach in need of resources, or whether you're the head of an organization or a team seeking to offer new content, this talk is for you. I feel everyone needs to upskill themselves in emotional awareness and emotional intelligence. At the start of this presentation, I found myself in a meeting with 12 other people. I was frustrated, I was annoyed, and all I could think of is, why was everyone so disengaged? Recently, I found myself in a similar situation, and instead of being someone who's sitting back quietly observing and judging, because believe it or not, that's what we do when we just sit there and stay quiet, I wasn't that person anymore. I was the person leading the discussion through encouraging inclusion and equity. Everyone has a way. The reason why we're all together is because we were all attracted to this project. Now, what is it that's going to keep everybody still included and creating? We've spoken about the cost of a missed opportunity through disengagement and miscommunication. How about we speak about the opportunity benefit, the pluses, the achievement, the success? I'd like to know what your process is throughout the next 7 days. What do you feel? What do you recognize? Does it feel good or bad? And what did you do with it? What information did you gather? And how did you decide to move forward? If you have questions for me, feel free to email me. Can you go to the next slide? My email is going to be in here, right here. I would love to see if you guys have any questions or tell me about your process. Is there any activity? Is there any excitement? And is there any ideas flowing in your mind? So remember, like I said, just like the gym, you don't go to the gym once, you don't do 10 sets of sit-ups or 10 sit-ups one time and then get abs of steel. So it's about building little by little, creating a commitment. Once you create a commitment, you're more apt to follow it. And I'll leave you with this. You deserve to thrive with authenticity and engagement. You deserve to thrive in your life with increased creativity, collaboration, and most especially connection. You deserve to thrive owning your voice, your value, and your authentic power. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box.
We have Yolanda. Great insight, Luz. I will follow up with you. I liked it a lot. Thanks for inviting.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. And I hope you stay in touch. Let me know how it goes with the next 7 days. Tell me if you got any information.
Amazing, Luz. This was incredible. I mean, it was truly just very, like, you walked us through, what is in men and why and how. And I'm sure everybody, if anyone has questions, please put them in, or comments how it went for you as we're watching and listening to Luz. So many great insights, right?
Thank you. I'll just share a little bit with you, because this, like I said, it's been over 10 years. I was getting all those situations in life where I just felt, obstacle, no power. I was in a bad relationship, 3 jobs, like I mentioned earlier. And every step of the way, I've had to decide, is this thought, am I making this decision from a place of fear? So example, I've had jobs where I can apply to them and get them, or I had a vision. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm an entrepreneur. There's been moments when I was thinking, no, go get the job, get what's safe, go out there and get the 9 to 5, the 401k, and be miserable like everybody else. Well, not everybody else, but you get.
Yes.
And then I had to really use my emotional awareness and say, okay, is this choice really what I want to create in my life?
Yeah, absolutely.
Time and time again.
No, I just wanted to say that when we step up into our power, then it allows other people to do the same. So this is really beautiful, and thank you, Luz. I really, truly, on behalf of the Latinista, we are shifted because of you. We've moved on from our workspace, like, oh, this is what goes on. This is what I can say. So I think you've really empowered people at the workplace, and it was nice to see Danilsa as a manager to do that for her employees as well. So this was wonderful. Thank you, Luz, and thank you
Thank you
everyone
so
for who
much.
tuned in. Again, Luz is at EQ Refined on Instagram. You can find her there, and her email address is
Luz at eqrefined.com. You can
yeah.
also find me on LinkedIn. I've posted a few articles.
Mhm.
I interact often, so send me a chat there and an invite, and we'll connect.
Fantastic. Thank you, Luz. You have a wonderful
Thank
day,
you.
everyone.
You too.
Take
Thank you.